it's time to go into our main topic for today, which is about the value of anime Hollywood adaptations. Now, this is especially timely because I think it was yesterday I posted our Ghost in the Shell review on the YouTube page, which you can go check out if you haven't already. Those watching live already know it's there, but for those listening. But yeah, we're going to be talking about Hollywood adaptations, the westernization of anime. I know Chiaki put a lot of stuff together here. So I don't know if you had...
This mac and cheese is so good. I mean, it's legitimately insanity.
I appreciate the update.
Yeah, keep us up. Keep us up to speed on that.
As the story continues to develop, please keep us in the loop.
It's potentially three of the world's most delicious foods combined into one thing. You have lobster, which most people who've had lobster
never had lobster
like it.
You really never had lobster?
No, I have a very strict effort to food quantity ratio that I have to maintain. Lobster, too much effort, not enough food. You gotta crack the legs and stuff. And
well,
no one eats lobster legs. Nobody
you.
eats lobster legs, friend.
What are you talking about?
You're talking about crab legs.
Oh, crab legs. It's the same thing.
No. If you order a lobster tail or lobster biscuits or something, it almost always comes to you already shelled.
Ooh, lobster biscuits sound delicious.
You don't do any work with lobster.
Interesting.
You just don't.
All right.
You're gonna get a lobster tail already shelled. So lobster, which most people love, mac and cheese. Let's just face it, every living human being loves mac and cheese.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
And bacon. Well, I don't trust you if you don't like bacon. So
Fair.
I've combined all three of these into a concoction that literally man has never experienced before.
Yeah. The only thing that can make it better is if you had a beer as well.
I don't have that.
I know.
Sorry.
I noticed. The fridge is empty of beer.
Kazuo walks in, first thing he checks.
I look for beer. I'm like, crap, it's empty.
Lobster bacon mac. LBM.
All right.
Okay. And that's now the title of the episode.
Lobster bacon mac?
Yeah.
Nice. I like it.
I think the title should be, what the heck is LBM?
What the heck is LBM?
Yeah.
All right. Carry this conversation, Chucky, while I eat.
I didn't even pick this topic. All right, so Mitsugi, as the ancients tell us, Mitsugi wrote down this topic today on the doc and said, "I don't have time.
Seems legit.
Can need help on main topic."
Fairly standard Mitsugi move.
Bullshit. What?
I'm just kidding.
Well, for once in my life, I was a social butterfly this weekend, so
Aw,
I didn't
that's
really have
awesome.
time.
Ooh.
I didn't really have time to do it.
We're going to be
okay.
social
To do
tonight,
all
too.
the things we are. We're going to go to Coheed. What?
Yeah.
Dude, I might put my contact lenses in because I want to get in there and
Oh.
F somebody
Oh,
up
God.
in the mosh.
You're going to be the oldest person in that mosh pit.
No, I won't. Coheed is an old band.
That's true.
It's from the 90s.
So, yeah. So, sidetrack, but, you already know, but for the listeners. So, we're going to go see Coheed and Cambria tonight in concert
they're very good live.
at Janice Landing, or Janice Live is what they call it now, which is a location here in St. Pete, Florida. I went to see Coheed at the same exact venue 8 years ago.
I think that's so cool. I really do.
Isn't that weird, though? It's a little weird.
I think that's
I'm gonna
so
take.
cool.
I'm gonna take because I took a selfie at that concert 8 years ago. I'm gonna take another selfie,
And post them side by side.
post them side by side, and be like 8 years. I think I look pretty much the same.
Look how old I
I
look
actually I looked at that picture of you and I'm like, I don't think he's changed that much. Like I can
Yeah.
tell that you were younger, but I don't know if I would have guessed 8 years younger. Like, yeah, you look
It's
good.
weird.
You look
Thanks.
good, bro.
Appreciate that.
So
Thanks,
yeah.
boss.
So the main topic is titled "The Value of Anime Hollywood Adaptations," and so I kind of the few talking points that I figured we could go on here and see where the conversation takes us, as is normal. One is what counts as an adaptation. You have a lot of movies that obviously are inspired by anime and influenced by anime, but are not a true adaptation versus actual adaptations. Then you have how do you determine value? How do you that's kind of like saying the success of, how do you determine success?
Okay.
And then the last talking point that I had is, the next big one coming up now that Ghost in the Shell is out, the next big one coming up is Netflix's adaptation of Death Note. And I figured we could talk about that because there's been some news recently surrounding that, and kind of go into that a bit. So,
Okay.
I would like to argue at some point that Hollywood adaptations of anime don't add a lot of value.
Don't add a lot of value.
What are
Okay.
you getting out of them exactly? None of them do well. None of them are great movies.
Fair.
They're just not. I mean,
Right.
whether you're a fan
It makes
or
you
not,
wonder why they keep trying it.
I know that exactly. So it's like when Ghost in the Shell comes out, it wasn't a bad movie. We've already talked about that. But people go, "Wow, another anime movie." What do we know about anime movies? They're not very good generally. Dragon Ball's been bad.
Live action adaptations of them.
Airbender was bad. Street Fighter bad. Speed Racer, although I like that movie, it did horribly.
I haven't seen it. I've heard that I need to though.
It was a huge flop. Christina Ricci looks great. The movie wasn't very good. Aeon Flux, bad. Old Boy, bad. Kite, bad. They're all bad movies. So my question here is, where's the value being generated? It's not making anime look good because they're bad movies.
No, it's a good point. I think, man, that's a really good question because like I think it probably has to do with the fact that there's already an IP that exists, so it's relatively easy for them to just be like, hey, we're just going to take this story, we've already got it made, there's already some sort of a fan base, and we're just going to turn it into a live action film. But yeah, you really have to consider like why if they're not making money on them, why do they continue? I know Ghost in the Shell currently, I mean, it's made technically its budget back, but not by much, and the budget that you see that they put out there is really just like what it costs to actually create the film, not taking into consideration marketing and not taking into consideration what they have to pay to the theaters, which is a large percentage. So it's definitely still has not technically made its money back.
Joshua Caleb in the chat is playing devil's advocate, and he says there's value if they direct people to the original material. So here's the question I ask both of you.
Okay.
The people that are watching these movies in theaters, primarily, what portion of them do you think are just going to see the movie because they're already familiar with the original material? And what percentage of people are going into like a Ghost in the Shell knowing nothing about it and then are afterwards also going back to find the original material?
Yeah, I would say most likely the vast majority of people that are actually going to see this movie are already familiar with it. Now, but they don't have to be. I mean, it's all about how you market it, really, and of course the quality of it and who's in it and the director and the writer and everything. But like you could take a movie like Edge of Tomorrow, which was based off of a light novel, and I don't know how well it did, but it was critically well received, and people seem to really enjoy that movie, whether or not they know it's even based on a light novel. Like there are plenty of movies that people don't even know if they're based on anything at all that do very well. So I think as long as it's well written and marketed well,
So to answer kind of the question with regards to Edge of Tomorrow, the budget was 178 million. Mm-hmm. The box office was 370.5.
Okay.
Now I think with Edge of Tomorrow, I'm trying to find more breakdowns, but I want to say though that it didn't do that well in the U.S. market.
Sure.
But it more than made up overseas.
And a lot of that's the case with a lot of movies. Like Ghost in the Shell made the majority of its money overseas. I mean, you take into consideration China alone has over 1 billion people, which is over 3 times as many people as the States have.
Yeah, but most people in China are poor.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the breakdown of their economy, but
China has this ridiculous dichotomy where half the country lives in Shanghai and half the country lives in like mud houses in the West.
So I just found an article posted 2 years ago, presumably shortly after it came out, and quote, it says, made only 29 million in domestic in its opening weekend, although overseas it's already amassed 111 million.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's something interesting to look at with talk of these adaptations are, and determining that word value, to go back to that, is, are we defining value as perpetuating anime? Are we defining value as, enriching cinema? Are we defining value as box office? And even in box office, is it domestic or overseas? You know?
Well, you can throw out box office, I think, because most of these movies haven't made a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And
well, one movie or a movie series really based off of an anime, I guess technically, is it based off? I guess, yeah, it is an anime. Transformers.
Well, yeah, Transformers has been really successful.
Yeah, incredibly successful, but especially overseas. I mean, the most recent, you know what? Looking at the film series in total across, what do they have, like 4 or 5 films out?
I don't know. There's going to be like 90 of them before they're done.
There are 5 currently. And yeah, we discussed in the last, I think it was a couple episodes ago, where I mentioned that Michael Bay says he already has 14 scripts written.
What?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Why?
Because they've made 5, and on a total budget of all 5 films of about $1 billion, 1.1 billion, they've made 3.7 billion.
You're making a shitload of money. Of course he's going to make more of them.
Every movie has been an incredible success. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I do believe the vast majority of that money is overseas, especially the Chinese market, which is
China
always huge
loves
for them.
Transformers.
So much so that Transformers specifically puts, and a lot of movies do this as well, they'll use like Chinese like cell phones and things like that in the film. Like the characters will be holding a phone that is only available in China. So they'll
Product placement.
Yeah, they'll do all kinds of like little product placement like that specifically for the overseas market in a lot of these films.
But if you throw out Transformers and you take all these other movies that I've mentioned and you add up all of their gross profits
Right.
and losses.
Yeah, they're not doing well.
Have they even made any money? So I don't know if that's the right angle to take with a creating value. And
no, that's a good point. But again, like they're probably just trying because it only takes one to actually work, and then you end up with another Transformers franchise, you know? So it's like they're throwing it out there to see what sticks. And the majority of these films they're not putting a ton of money into. Like,
I don't know, man.
I mean, like Ghost in the Shell had a pretty sizable budget with 100 million. But like if you look at something like Dragon Ball,
Dragon Ball, I mean.
what was it, Evolution? Was that the name of the movie?
Yeah.
Like I don't remember what the budget was, but I remember it wasn't very high here.
Well, Edge of Tomorrow had a huge budget.
Yeah, so Dragon Ball Evolution was a $30 million budget, which is that's pretty much like an independent film budget.
Speed Racer
And
made
it showed.
Yeah, and it doubled its money though. So
Speed Racer was $120 million. It only
that's the Wachowskis too. You have to take into consideration.
it only netted 93 globally.
Ouch.
I mean, and that's a big budget, 120
Yeah,
million.
that's a big loss.
That entire movie is CG.
Yeah, because there was also a lot of marketing that went into that as well.
What else do we have here? We have, well, the rest of these movies are definitely low budget movies. Street Fighter, and they're too old to even be good comparisons at this point.
Yeah.
But and I don't think any of them are great movies. Even the Transformers movies, I don't think anybody's going to say they're great. So
No, definitely not.
We're not enhancing the art form of cinema here.
I would say the first Transformers was mildly amusing.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, it did have Megan Fox in it.
True.
That too.
That was amusing. Seeing her fixing that car.
Oh, it was a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Huh?
Was it a motorcycle or a car?
No, it was a car. She was she was bent over the hood. Come on, bro. Classic. This is classic cinema.
As long
here.
as she's bent. Never mind.
Oh my god.
Just eat your food. Eat your
I'm
food.
eating my mac and cheese. It's really good.
Yeah.
Every time I run into a
Wait,
piece
the mac
of
and cheese or Megan Fox?
both.
Oh.
Every time I run into a cube of lobster meat, I'm like, oh my god, this is what it is to be alive.
Explosion of pleasure in your mouth.
Megan Fox eating lobster mac and cheese? Anyone? Maybe?
Maybe. Or Megan Fox feeding you lobster mac and cheese.
There you go. There it is.
Oh my god.
Yep.
Oh my god.
That's how I want to go.
By Megan Fox feeding you mac and cheese.
Yeah. Sitting on the toilet as Megan Fox feeds me mac and cheese.
Dropping a big D.
And then the room explodes like a nuclear bomb goes off.
Well, very Michael Bay of that.
That's how I want to go.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I want to be fed lobster mac and cheese until my blood thickens to the point where my heart can no longer pump it and I die.
Oh jeez.
Yeah.
Wow, that's unfortunate.
Okay, so
Anyway.
So the question here, so now a question, do these movies bring awareness to anime? My thought here is that it would only work, that only applies if two things happen. One, the person seeing the movie has not yet seen the anime.
Right, which is
Or is
probably
not
a small
familiar- or is not
percentage of the people that are actually seeing it.
Probably a small percentage. What do you want to say, like 20%?
Probably, yeah.
Now, of the 20%, a second thing has to happen to those people. They have to like the movie so much that they go and seek out the source material.
If they even realize it has source, because
Sure.
to go back to your statement, Kazuo,
Yeah.
like I think a lot of people, for example, Edge of Tomorrow, I think is a perfect example of that, where I'll talk to people and I'll be like, yeah, it was based off of a Japanese light novel. Even people who are anime fans, and they're mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think anyone, even after knowing that, went and hunted down a translation of the light novel.
I doubt it.
And they don't want you to know it's based on a Japanese light novel because there's a stigma,
Yeah.
and they don't want you to know that. That's not a marketing point.
No, definitely not.
It's not, Ghost in the Shell, and then they talk about the original anime for 400
Well,
years. They're talking about Scarlett Johansson's butt.
Yeah, I mean, but Ghost in the Shell is probably something that you could make that a marketing point because like the film, the original film, is so critically acclaimed and is one of the.
It is great.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great anime films of all time, not including Miyazaki's and stuff like that. But
I mean, it's a great movie for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, that's something they could definitely use as marketing to be like, hey, this is based off of this amazing animated film. But yeah, the majority of the time, no, they're not. Well, but then again, you look at something like Death Note. They're definitely, mentioning the original series on that. I mean, that's not something that they're shying away from at all.
Okay.
So that's something to consider. I think it all depends on how big the original series is or the original movie is. And then, whether or not they're willing to use that as a marketing piece. But I do think ultimately...
I got a piece for you.
Oh, boy. I think ultimately, though, it is really just... They're looking for ideas, and they want to take something that's already formed and has some sort of an audience that supports it, and then they're just going to be like, okay, this already exists, so let's just take it and create, a movie out of it, as opposed to having to come up with a whole new idea. So I think that's really what it is at its core.
Looking at Chucky.
Why?
I don't know. It's your outline.
It's I don't know. It's your well. I don't know. I think we're doing a good job.
So what do we think about? Because I mentioned Death Note, the new series.
Yeah.
What do we think about that?
I don't know why they're doing it.
Well, I don't think it's a series. I think it's a movie. I think it's a Netflix movie.
Still don't know why they're doing it.
Yeah, it's I believe it's a film.
I know it's on Netflix. I didn't know if it was a film or a series, but
I'm pretty sure it's a film.
I feel like my opinions aren't very profitable. Aren't very. Most people don't like my opinions here.
Why?
But it's like because there are a lot of people that are listening to this podcast that hear, oh, they're making a Death Note live action movie. I'm so excited, right?
Oh, it is a film.
And my thought is, there are better, more adaptable properties they could be making a movie out of. And I don't know why they chose Death Note.
I don't know. I think, Death Note makes a lot of sense to me. And here's the reasons why Death Note makes a lot of sense to me. One, it has a pretty big following all over the world. And Netflix has done a really good job of going global. So talking about that, maybe things don't do as well domestically as they do internationally. Like, I definitely think Netflix is a property that's gotten a lot of mind share.
Yeah, and
everywhere.
Netflix knows its numbers, so it knows how well Death Note is doing.
I was gonna say, wasn't Death Note even on Netflix?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm sure that they saw the numbers and were like, "Holy crap, everybody's watching this anime," and that's why they went forward with it. Netflix is very good about managing their numbers, but also not telling.
They don't tell shit.
Yeah.
Not telling like the creators of that like what the numbers are. So like comedians hate it because it's like they'll never tell you how successful your special is, so that way you have no bargaining chips. Like when you go to re-up for another special.
It's smart.
Yeah.
So I think it's a smart choice both domestically and abroad for Netflix. I think that it's a smart choice in the sense of I think it's accessible material because it kind of falls in that it's paranormal, and there's one paranormal element, and that is the Death Note itself.
Right.
But otherwise, it's just
what about Ryuk?
Well, I attach Ryuk to the Death Note because it's his Death Note, and the Death Note doesn't exist without him and whatnot. But like that's the one paranormal aspect, and otherwise Death Note is just a cat and mouse murder mystery thriller. So I think it's accessible to a lot of people because it falls under kind of a formula that people are familiar with, with a little bit of that supernatural flair for fun, but without being too over the top. So I think it'll appeal to people who both like the series and don't even know that the original anime exists.
Let me ask a question.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't seen all of Death Note.
Okay.
I've seen about a third of it.
If this is going to tangent, can I just finish my third point? Because I have one more.
It might tangent, so go ahead.
Okay. My last point of why I think it makes sense for them to do it is because I think it will be cheap to do. Because other than Ryuk, which they could interpret a lot of ways, depending on how they wanted to.
They could what?
They could interpret. Interpret a lot of ways.
Sorry, I didn't even notice it until
I did.
Depending on how they wanted to, like they don't even have to make him quote unquote faithful to the source material. They could just make him a man in a black suit. I mean,
yeah, or they could do like where it's kind of like in his imagination or something like that, and
but I'm talking
it's not like an actual creature sitting in the middle of the room.
Yeah, but I'm talking like for special effects.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a cheap film to make.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of people hanging around in rooms,
and the budget is 40 to 50 million,
and writing a name and grabbing a chip and eating it.
Yeah.
All right, so here's my question.
Hilarious.
As someone who hasn't seen all of Death Note,
Yes.
Really?
Just tell me. Well, Death Note's premise really irritated me really fast.
Oh, I remember that.
So I'm gonna make a statement, and I want you to tell me if I'm incorrect.
Okay.
I feel like in making a live action movie of Death Note, you'd be better off removing Ryuk completely, ending the Death Note movie with cutting it at just Light and L,
Yeah.
and making it a murder mystery type thing.
So wait, so Light is going around killing people, like physically?
You can have like the whole moral conflict theme or whatever that's going on in Death Note. And you can have the paranormal of if you write the name in a book and they die.
I think that.
But you got to take Ryuk out and just make it a murder like cat and mouse game.
Oh, I disagree.
Yeah, if you remove Ryuk, then like where does the Death Note come from? Is it just like some book that some kid
doesn't
found
matter.
in a well somewhere?
I
or
mean,
something?
think about like The Ring. It's a videotape. It kills people.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have an explanation.
I mean, I guess you could remove him, but I don't see why you would.
I don't.
I think because then how is Light gonna even know what the Death Note is or what it
Because
does?
the
Well,
average-
the Death Note does have explanation in the front.
Yeah.
because the average person watching the movie is going to think Ryuk looks ridiculous.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say you don't. Have to, well, what you said. You don't have to make him look like some kind of monster or whatever. He could just look like a god of death, like in a black suit and stuff, and all like just a normal person.
I guess so. I just don't know where. I don't know what real. And without all of like the Shinigamis and stuff in the show, without Ryuk, I just don't feel like much changes. It's just a detective anime with a guy who's has a moral conflict and.
The thing that I really like about Ryuk as a character from a plot story perspective is that I feel like Ryuk gives a bit of an interest. One, it gives an interesting counterbalance to the story in the sense that the story is so weighted in cat and mouse and whatnot that Ryuk doesn't care what happens. Like, he's so far detached and he's, supernatural that he doesn't care. And I think that's an interesting character perspective to have to the narrative, to have someone who's literally like good and evil. I really don't care. I just care that people are dying on the Death Note. And two, I do think that there is a beautiful story poetry to when, Light first gets the Death Note and he opens the Death Note and he's reading it and learning about it. And Ryuk is like, if you write names in this, I will be the one to kill you. You will die by my hand. Mm-hmm. And spoiler, I guess, that does come to pass at the very end of the series. And so I actually kind of like that sort of symmetry where it starts out and then, Ryuk says that and then he functions as that moral, completely morally ambiguous character, and then comes back in at the end to basically say, well, this was fun. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to take your life.
Definitely like the idea. I think Ryuk in some form definitely has to be there. Otherwise, I think because I think there's a lot of really good stuff with him, but I am a little wary of them making it too over the top and ridiculous.
He is ridiculous.
Well,
he is.
The way
Even
he,
in anime,
the way
ridiculous.
he appears is ridiculous.
Yes, and the things he does are
that's
ridiculous.
what I'm saying is that the main thing is about his appearance because like the character itself, like his purpose and his trajectory throughout the story, I think is important and plays a huge part in the rest of the show.
Make him Slender Man. I'd rather have him be that.
I'm really hopeful. William Dafoe is playing Ryuk, and I kind of like. I really. And I'm sure there are people out there listening to this that would crucify me for saying it who want it to be very faithful to the anime, and that's fine. That is totally a legitimate opinion. But I would almost want to see like William Dafoe, maybe with some like light graying makeup on, so he does look kind of a little supernatural-esque, a little sickly, a little not all human.
Yeah.
And maybe
he already does look a little not all
right?
human.
And then like some crazy contacts or something, and then maybe CGI like his teeth to be fang-like, but otherwise he looks like a man in a suit.
Yeah.
And go just enough that it's like, here is a otherworldly entity. Here's something that's not quite human.
Another thing to consider is that no one can see Ryuk other than Light.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider, is that he doesn't have to be like, some weird creature walking around and confusing everybody that sees him. He's invisible to everyone but Light. So that's what I was saying. He could even be some kind of like wispy kind of like figment of his imagination who barely like appears barely in shadows and stuff like that.
I just hope that whatever they do, they give more explanation for L's detective work. Because in the anime, that made no sense at all.
What do you mean? How do you mean?
He's like,
oh, this is his
why
soapbox.
This is why I don't like Death Note. It's because in the anime, he's like, all the murders take place between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock. So he absolutely has to be a high school student.
Right.
I'm like, okay, no, it makes no sense at all.
True.
Oh, and he knows this, so he has to be the son of a detective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, you just pulled something out of your complete ass.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
It made no sense at all. It was horrible.
Yeah, and that's something that I commented on a long time ago about just in order to write someone who is a genius, like it's really hard to do if you yourself are not in some way
Exactly.
a
You
genius.
can't write something smarter than you.
Yeah.
And I don't think
Yeah.
the writers of Death Note are that smart.
Well, I'm sure they're plenty smart, but they're not
Well, they did a bad job
incredible
of
detectives, perhaps.
that detective work was
Yeah.
it would have made more sense for Elle to be a psychic.
Yeah. I mean, well,
and then I'd get it, but no.
I do tend to trust Netflix, though. I mean, they've got an insane amount of money and resources, and they tend to do really well. So
And that's the thing that I come back to is like Netflix overall. I think has done a really good job with their various adaptations. I personally celebrate the age of, these Netflix, Hulu, HBO adaptations where they're getting to play in sandboxes that Hollywood and big cable has never touched.
Sure.
And they're doing well. And so, I mean, to our earlier point, Netflix has the numbers. They know their viewer base. And this also isn't something where it's like you're asking people to spend money, to take time out of their day, get to a theater, spend money on a ticket for them and probably their friends for something that they know is going to be mediocre. Even if Death Note is mediocre, I would venture a bet that a large majority of all anime fans who have a Netflix subscription will still watch it because it's part of the subscription.
at least the first half.
At least the first half, yeah.
Does anybody have anything else they'd like to see Netflix make other than Death Note? Because I do.
As far as anime series?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Let me guess. You're going to say Crest of the Stars?
No. I think that would be really hard to do.
Definitely.
And it'd be very expensive.
Yeah. I'm all for like space operas though. Like there's definitely not nearly enough of those.
Oh, I mean, there's like you never get any.
Yeah.
That budget, though.
I was thinking like Bubblegum Crisis would be a little more. It would be easier to do. Something like some of the old police anime would be good.
Yeah. That would be interesting.
I was thinking some slice of life.
Yeah.
Hanasaka Iroha, Your Lie in April.
Yeah.
I mean, now a lot of these they would have to change. Like, I don't think Your Lie in April would work in a live action adaptation if they kept the characters the same age. Like, if they still kept them in junior high.
Yeah.
I don't think that would do as well. I think they would have to age them to
High school.
or college even. But I think Slice of Life would do amazingly, especially again. Those slice of life with that little bit of a paranormal flair, because I think that does really well. I think like Stranger Things, where it's, there's that paranormal aspect to it, but most of the most of the show takes place in the quote unquote real world.
Right.
So I think slice of life with a little bit of something supernatural.
You know what they should
in it
make?
too.
A live action free.
Oh.
Yes.
Just watch the Olympics.
Or Haikyuu.
Lots of good suggestions from the chat. Space Brothers, Noir, Steins
Monster.
Gate, Nana, 12 Kingdoms. And about 6 times people were suggested Monster.
Yeah.
That would
Well,
be awesome.
Monster would be amazing.
You know what else? Detective Conan.
Sure, why not?
Actually, probably would work.
That would be awesome.
Monster is perfect because it's also a detective show, like a murder mystery, a murder thriller, but written. I mean, I'm sorry, Death Note fans. It's written way better than Death Note. So, and it would make more sense. See, like my take is, you got to find a property that is going to appeal to Western audiences.
I have something that may blow your mind, Mitsugi.
Yeah.
You can actually probably not your mind. It'll probably blow the listener's mind though. Is that we can say something is written better without it being a diss of something else. Like I can agree,
Oh,
Monsters
So
written
you're
better,
saying
true?
we can like different things?
and say something is maybe even technically better,
But I'm an
but
asshole.
both can be
Good.
good.
I'm actually not. I'm such a.
Huh. Here's a question.
Do you think anybody in real life would believe how like cuddly and affectionate I am in real life?
I think so. We all
I don't think so.
they
I
see
think
right through you.
People think I'm like this ball of sticky tack that like has shards of broken glass sticking out of it.
Okay.
A ball of sticky tack with shards of broken glass.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they think you're prickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Deadly.
Interesting. That's not. Yeah.
I kill you.
So here's a question about Death Note and about adaptations and about westernization of stuff. How do we feel about, I guess we could say specifically Death Note and the change of like going from Light Yagami and all that to Light Turner and the quote unquote whitewashing of the show and of anime in general.
So I think
I'm okay with it.
I think this is something interesting because one of the producers of the upcoming film, Roy Lee, in the past 2 or 3 days, so this is really timely, I guess made a couple statements with regards to all of the press about whitewashing and whatnot. And there's a lot of things online about it. There's a petition that almost has 17,000 signatures to boycott the film for it. It's definitely a hot button issue that I think, as it should overall, is getting more media mindshare. And Roy Lee apparently says, quote, I can understand the criticism, ... if our version of Death Note was set in Japan and featured characters that were Japanese named or of Japanese ancestry. Further on, it is an interpretation of that story in a different culture. So there are going to be some obvious changes. Some people will like them, some people may not. But the changes were necessary to make it more appealing to the US or to the English language market. Of the key actors, one of them is Asian, one is African American, and 3 are Caucasian. Saying whitewashing is also somewhat offensive since one of our 3 leads is African American. People can criticize it, but I'd say they should see the movie first. Then they could accuse us of not having a diverse enough cast. Just judge the movie after it comes out.
Go ahead.
I know. I shouldn't even open my mouth.
Okay.
It's just so dangerous.
I mean, okay. All right. So initially, my reaction is what I think a lot of people's reaction would be, which is that, man, why do they keep taking all of these great Japanese products and then flipping them and having like white leads or whatever in them? But then as I ruminate and ponder over it longer, I think, okay, well, but they really are just adapting this and bringing this to a different country. It's really no different than, I mean, something like The Ring or any of these other Japanese movies that they take from Japan and produce in the States. And
how about taking a Japanese video game and, believe it or not, translating it?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because ain't no one gonna play Persona 5 in Japanese.
It's not too different. Well,
you whitewashed it because they actually speak Japanese.
That's a little bit of a stretch. Like it would be
almost the same thing.
Not really, it's just translating. But if you were to say take Persona and then change the names of the character and change the image of the character into like, instead of whatever, like Ryusuke or whatever his name is, you'd be like, oh, his name is Fred.
All the characters
he now looks like this.
But
that would be a little different.
The thing I don't get is that in anime, almost no one looks Asian.
Yeah. Well,
so like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
They look white.
But I do understand the concept of taking something, a story, and then changing it to fit your culture. I don't know if that's necessarily so wrong.
To add to that, Godius Maximus in the chat says the whole whitewashing thing is bullshit. Nobody would bat an eyelid if Japan made a version of a Western film with Japanese actors. It's only because it is white people that people are making a fuss. And I kind of go back to a couple things with this, and I've said them before. One, I try to recognize that it is hard for me to talk about some of these issues because I am coming from a position of privilege and a position of power.
Is that why you guys brought me on this podcast?
That is the only reason.
We need a brown person.
No,
But
like I can look at it and I can say, I am white. I am the whitest white girl you will probably
Are you though?
I'm pretty white.
Race is a social construct.
That girl is white.
But I have, I'm a female, so I'm not the top of the totem pole.
Are you though?
Yeah, I identify as female. So I'm not the top of the totem pole in America's.
I'm a potato chip. So
social hierarchy.
You are what you eat.
I am.
But I do have a lot of privilege that comes naturally being air quoted as in the way society has been constructed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sometimes hard for me to even recognize my own privilege. And that's something that I've been trying to get better about. But one of the things that I guess I come to with something like this is I really support the idea of having more diverse casts and just having more opportunities for people to play the roles.
Sure.
So I like the fact that the producer said, and I didn't know that until I read it, that there is, an African American actor, that there is an Asian actor, or an actor of Asian descent. I think they said it was an Asian American. And so I like that. And one of my biggest things about whitewashing is that it takes opportunities for minority actors to be in spotlight roles and takes them out of, the minority actor's ability and puts it just continually back into, we're just going to cast a white person because that's what sells. And I think that's starting to fade away. So I like that aspect. To your point, Kazuo, I can see, the fact that they're making an adaptation. But my question would be, I feel like that argument in my mind only holds up if they really went for, we are going to use this as an inspiration, but we're making it our own.
Yeah. So where I differ there is that, in my mind, they can remake the exact same story, but they're moving it to a different location. I don't think necessarily. So the original Death Note takes place in Japan. It's about a Japanese student. We don't live in Japan, and Netflix is not a company in Japan, and the majority of their shows are aimed towards people that live in America. And the majority of people in America, let me finish. The majority of people that live in America are white people. So if they're going to take a show and move it to a different location, it's just like if they were going to take the show and move it to South America, they would want to make it about a South American kid. If they were going to take it and move it to, Italy, they would want to make it about an Italian kid. So they're taking the show and they're reproducing it in America. So they want to make it about a generic American kid, which statistically would be a white kid, a white male, due to just numbers. So I can understand that. I think where I have an issue is if the show or if the content was specifically Japanese, like a story about Japan or about any other culture for that matter. It's a story about people in Africa, and then they make the characters, or if it's a story about Egypt, for example, with what was the name of that movie, Gods of Egypt, where everyone was white.
Yeah.
It's like the movie is Gods of Egypt. It takes place in Egypt about Egyptians, and you're casting all white people. That's whitewashing 100%.
Yeah.
But if it's a show where they're like, hey, we're going to take this interesting story and move it to a different location, I don't really have a problem with them casting people that are from that location or people that are the standard or the average in that location.
Go ahead.
Well, and that's kind of what I was saying in the sense of, as long as they're truly making it their own story, like adapting it in their own way, like adding their own spin to it.
But I don't even know if they have to do that. I think they're just relocating it. It's like taking a foreign film and any foreign film and just recreating it for your audience. Your audience is in the States, and the average person that lives in the States is a white male.
But I think though, again, even following that argument though, because if you're doing it to the average person in the States, other things will inherently have to change as a result of adaptation and localization. I mean, jokes that fly in Japan are not going to fly in the States. Sure. Cultural references are going to be different. And I think the sum culmination of all of that will result in a very different feeling kind of production if it's done to a true extent, because in Japan you have characters that are shy to even talk to a member of the opposite sex, but if you had it to that quote unquote extreme by American standards, it would be weird. Yeah. So I think it's kind of it has to make sense.
Go ahead.
So yeah, first of all, this mac and cheese are really good.
Okay.
I mean, it's gone.
All right.
Did it change your life?
Thanks for saving some for us.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I buy it by the tray. So I have a complex of being offensive.
What?
Yeah, because every time I say something, someone gets offended by it. So
please, not anytime actually most of the time.
Pretty much. So I'm gonna rely on both of you to stop me
Okay.
if I say something I should not say. But I just think that people are a little bit clueless.
Okay.
You have a company whose mission is, believe it or not, to make money. Can you believe it? They don't give a shit about you.
I'm gonna stop you real quick, because you asked me to. I don't think it's necessarily the things you say that might be offensive.
Okay.
I think it's the manner in which you say them.
Well, I'm very like
so when
sarcastic
you make it sound like everyone's an idiot but you, I think people might get offended by
I'm
that.
just passionate, right? So like, believe it or
just
not,
trying to help.
believe it or not, Netflix is a company that is a
It
public
goes right back to it.
is a publicly traded company that exists to make money, and they don't care about you or me or Kazuo or Chiaki or anime or anything. They just care about money.
True.
It's a public company, so just forget about anything else. I work for a corporation. I know what it is. Okay. You have a company like Netflix that's going to put $50 million into a movie,
Right.
right? They have a risk assessment, and they say, here's our chances of making a profit on this movie. Well, you better believe that they're going to do everything in their power to make sure they can make their money back because they want to reduce their risk.
Yeah.
And so, of course, they're going to cast a popular white actor like Willem Dafoe for an anime character that looks white anyway in the anime.
I don't think anyone really talked about William Dafoe because Yuke is not human.
Yeah, he's not here.
But you got to have an app. But like, it's the same thing with Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah. Well, but to be fair, they
can
cast
you-
the lead. They cast complete unknowns.
Can you imagine how badly
So-
Ghost in the Shell would do without Scarlett Johansson? That movie would have been an absolute catastrophic failure.
Perhaps.
It's going to lose money with her in it.
Yeah.
So these people that complain about whitewashing, they don't understand that the company is trying to reduce. Well, they don't. You're laughing at. Should I stop? No. Should I stop?
No, continue. You're good.
They don't understand that's just how the world works. That's how the world works. They're trying to make their money back. They're trying to reduce their risk. And I just think people like to complain about everything.
I
wouldn't disagree with that part.
Everything.
here's my stance on that though, or counter argument, or however you want to see it. I get what you're saying in the sense of businesses are looking out for themselves and their shareholders, and you can't expect a business to do anything more than that.
Yeah.
But I will say the onus then falls on the consumer to hold those businesses morally accountable.
Which is never going to happen.
But it has over the years. Change has been slow, but it has. That's how we end up with things like child labor laws,
Right.
and EPA kind of things, or companies moving away from various chemicals that used to be commonplace in foods and whatnot, but now that aren't used because there's been social backlash against them, and companies don't want to be associated with that. And
Right.
so I feel like, yes, companies will look after themselves, but to say that it's pointless for we as consumers to try to hold them accountable is also not the right way to approach it, because if it's a dangerous argument, because if you follow it to its logical conclusion, that's how we end up with business without morals.
Yeah, but what morals are you violating here? I don't know. I'm missing
Yeah.
the moral. I'm missing the moral like shutdown. Where's the ethical breach?
Well, I think it has to do with kind of the whole idea of them primarily and almost solely casting white people and not giving minorities a role or a shot. I think another thing, though, on the opposite end of that I also don't like is I don't like diversity for diversity's sake. Like, I don't like the idea of, all right, look, we're going to need at least one black guy. We're going to need 2 Spanish people. We're going to need, 3 or what, 2.5 Asians.
Don't you find
so let's
that
get a mix?
Don't you
It's
find
like,
that about as offensive as whitewashing?
Yeah, exactly.
You're
And that's what I'm saying is I don't
And
like, and the same reason why I don't like, because I think what it does, and this is a big problem just overall with our society when it comes to, not just race but also gender. I think what it does is it paints a picture that you can't, that you're not good enough or you're not capable of defending yourself and of getting by on your own merit. So you need the government to say, well, they have to hire you.
And I agree with that, but I also sometimes I can't outright 100% agree with it, and here's why and I'll use what I'm familiar with, which is females in corporate America and women in leadership positions in corporate America, and it's an applicable example in the sense that it's not intentional sexism that keeps women off the boards or out of leadership positions. And yet less than, I think, 4% of CEOs of the Fortune 500 are women.
Right.
And that's really disproportionate. That's not like, 40 and
Yeah.
60. That's really disproportionate. And part of the reason why is because men held the leadership position before women could. But now that women can, it's still that kind of boys club mentality of guys oftentimes will go to the people that they came up with, which were other men.
Right.
And so it's kind of that, it's not an intentional, like, no one's sitting there thinking, oh, I don't want her because she's a woman.
Right.
But it's the, oh, I've worked most closely with, or I've seen this person who's usually that kind of, same cycle.
Right.
And so
somebody that they're familiar with and comfortable with, and usually you associate with people that are similar to yourself.
Exactly. So while I agree in that, sometimes it is frustrating to have those things where it's like, we have to have, we have to meet quotas and tokens
but sometimes
are
it
dangerous.
doesn't make sense though, because it's like you look at. So I agree in that there should be. It's unfortunate. It's incredibly unfortunate, but in the society that we live in, there have to be some kind of safety measures or ways to promote minorities and women in certain things, whether it's acting or whatever it may be.
Man, if you had made Elle black, you would have just as many people pissed off.
He is.
Elle's black in the movie?
Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Well, how's that whitewashing?
Oh wait. Oh, is the Elle character? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he is.
Oh, okay. That
But
was.
I mean, he is actually.
No, I didn't know that.
No, he is. Yeah,
I'm really
I
confused.
forget his name, but yeah, Elle is black. But he's not.
What?
He's not Japanese. But anyways, the point.
Wait a second. How is it whitewashing if the main
That's what
character
the-
is
He's not the main
black?
character. Light
That's
is
what
the main character.
that's what the producer said. Was he's like, I actually kind of find it weird that you're saying whitewashing because we do
Because
have
one of the two main characters is black.
All right, I'm walking away from this discussion because I don't buy. I just can't even be a part of it.
So the point I was making was that he's like, I'm out.
I'm like Bill Belichick. I'm taking off the headphones.
The point I was making was that it's unfortunate that there have to be measures in place to provide guaranteed roles, both in acting or in business, for minorities and women. It's unfortunate that that's the case. I do see the reason that they exist, but I also don't like the idea of them existing in a way that maybe there's maybe the best people for this particular role that they just because we're talking about the show. Maybe they had several people that they had audition, and the best guy for the role was a white guy. Like he just happened to do the best job. But they're like, sorry, we can't hire you because it's got to be a Japanese or a black guy or a Spanish guy. You know, it's like that I don't like either. You know,
Ideally, you get both. You get diversity and the best person for the job
yes,
in the role.
ideally, you hire the best person for the job.
And that ends up being.
But unfortunately, that's not the case, which leads us down a road where we have to make these adjustments that are just gonna that also cause problems in their own way. So it's like it's a lose-lose.
I'm
Really,
eating up some more food.
Godius Maximus in the chat had the best solution, and this might be a good place to kind of end on. And that was, can we not just cast The Rock in every role?
I agree.
Absolutely.
And that's
100%.
that's the best way to end this. Is
The
that
Rock as Ryuk.
The Rock?
I'd watch that.
Oh my god.
I'd watch that.
That would be amazing.
That would be so good.
I'd watch that.
I would love to see that, and him not even have a script. Like, just be like, this is your character, this is the plot. Just
He's like, he's
everything.
just
Can I ask
sitting
a
there
question?
jacked up, like, listen up, you candy ass. We're gonna.
I want to ask a question because I'm really frustrated.
Okay.
And then I think we should go to the news break after you answer the question.
Okay.
Okay.
Elle is black.
Yes.
I honestly didn't know that. So it's still whitewashing. What has to occur? Because like to me, Netflix is doing exactly what people want. They're taking a character and giving a minority a shot. Right? Am I right there? He's the main character.
He's one of the two main characters.
Elle is obviously not black. Is not black.
Yeah.
Okay. He's Asian or whatever. So, what has to occur for people to be happy? Is it even possible to make people happy?
Well, no. I think
Then if it's not possible to make people happy, Netflix should say, "Fuck you. We're gonna do what gives us the best shot at making our money."
Yeah.
Because you can't make people happy. They will not be satisfied. Why bother trying? You can't make every character in the show like This person's a Native American. This person's black. This person's Asian.
Yeah.
This person's polka dots.
Well, that's kind of
you can't have every character look like that because then because someone's gonna be pissed because that character's
he's so angry.
well, it's so frustrating. People need to be more worried. People need to be worried about more important things in their own personal lives than bitching about everything.
Mitsuki, I'm going to agree with you that people will always find a reason to complain, and that's
why
something.
should Netflix care? They obviously put forth a conscious effort.
The point
And
is
yet-
that Netflix shouldn't care. We needed a podcast topic.
Look,
It's a great topic too. We've been having a nice, passionate discussion about it.
in the wise words of Bill Cosby,
People are never happy.
Really?
if you try to make the only way was it if you try to make everyone happy, then you'll make no one happy or some crap like that. I don't know if we can trust him though.
In the wise words of one of my business professors, you cannot be everything to everyone.
People will never
Unless
be
you're
happy.
Jesus, because he was all things to all people.
I need a news break. I'm so frustrated. Please get me out of here before I say something I truly will regret.